Oh, hello everyone. Welcome to a very special Scott Humphrey stream. I don't know what I actually call these streams when I'm not doing Method Madness under another title or Doomed, so we call it whatever we want, really. And what I like to call it is Solo RPG Night. That's right. It's the hashtag Just Scoots. Hi everyone. Wonderful to have you with us, and I imagine there'll be people coming and going throughout the evening. You may notice I'm a little low lit today. I've actually turned down some of my lights to make it spookier in here. And I've even got some fun little spooky lighting for myself. Although, unfortunately, the way that my desk is set up, they can't be nearer to my face. So it's really just, it's moody for me, but not for you. Today, I don't know, we're drawing closer to, well, we're in the holiday season. And nothing screams holidays to me like being lost and screaming into the void. I've seen an awful lot of RPG systems go by over the last few years. Exactly, Aragwen. Merry Screammas. Christmas screaming. Seasons creepings. There it is. There's a lot of RPG systems over the years that I've come across as part of RPG Clinic and as part of, the RPG kind of tabletop role-playing community online and stuff, things that I've wanted to try. And not all of them are obviously appropriate for RPG Clinic in our group, either because of themes or because they're solo or whatever. So today, I wanted to try one out. I backed this game on Kickstarter, Indiegogo, I think, actually, and I have a physical copy and a PDF. And there it is, Osab, exactly. Let's call this The Nightmare Before Christmas. What I would like to do, it's a solo RPG tonight, or I'm going to be playing this game solo. However, you're all here, you're all along for the ride, so I may be soliciting suggestions from the chat, and if people want to just give suggestions unbidden, have fun, please do, and I will do my best to incorporate them, unless they don't work for me. Hello, yes, Kung Fu Fenris. That is a lovely Elizabeth judge. I hope you're not judging me too hard. Do a barrel roll! Hello, Saren Zero. Thanks again for all the gift subs, Saren Zero. It was very, very kind. Paul Prospero thanks you as well. He told me he was going on vacation. He looked really excited about it. And then he vanished, so whatever. I probably should actually put this back up to the top and then explain why this isn't on. Interesting. Let's get this going again here. I'm just going to pull up the actual book here, team. Oh, I see what I've done wrong. All right. Give me a second. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. We'll listen to some spooky music. In the meantime, I'll just talk a little bit about the game, and then we're going to read some of the rules together. Basically, I want to make sure everyone's on the same page. This is a game played with a deck of cards, any number of players, as near as I understand, but it is GM-less, ST-less. The game is told collaboratively between all of the players, so there's no one who is specifically directing the story, as it were, which I always thought was kind of cool. So we'll see how that feels. I am going to, instead of capturing Chrome, I'm going to capture this. There we go. That's pretty good. Let's see if I can fix that. There we go. Not bad, eh? Welcome, one and all, to tonight's stream, Lost Below the Earth, by Michael Whelan. Whelan, rather. I may have to zoom in, which is very silly of me, but it is what it is. I'm going to do my best to sort of, again, not necessarily speed through this, because I quite like the art, I quite like the theme of this, etc., but I want to give people a sense of what we're getting into, and then we're going to create something collaboratively tonight. Again, it's the holidays. I thought I'd do something a little special. Lost Below the Earth is a GM-less storytelling game for one or more players in which your characters will discover a deep and cavernous a network of tunnels, rooms, or caves that stretch deep below the earth in a seemingly endless descent. Now, before we even go on, there's obviously a lot of inspirations being drawn here from various classic horror films, but not classic horror films, but for horror films, horror tropes, horror manga, and horror novels. I recently read House of Leaves for the first time, and it was... I don't use this term lightly, it was life-changing. For me as an artist, getting to immerse myself in something like House of Leaves, really, really exciting. It's not for everyone, and I just think that everyone should at least give it a shot and see where they're at with it. But this definitely feels like, House of Leaves feels like it could be an inspiration here. You will delve deeper and deeper in search of some treasure, discovery, or answers in the dark. House of Leaves, Kung Fu Fenris, by, I'm going to say Mark, and then I can never pronounce his last name. It's like a Polish last name. Denzlewski? I'm actually just going to look it up because I really should know. And I can do that because I'm not pretending to be another person tonight. House of Leaves by Mark Danielewski. Polski name. Mark? I'm going to put it in chat here. Daniel Lusky. There we go. Strong recommendation. It is a huge novel. It's intense. There's a lot going on in it. But it is... part of the experience of reading the book is the actual act of reading the book. And you'll know exactly what I mean when you dive in. Huge fan. Again, I don't think it's for everyone, but there we are. Hi, reading aloud as well. Welcome to Lost Below the Earth, which we will be playing tonight solo. Lost Below the Earth works in any setting, be it adventurers searching an ancient dungeon, scientists excavating a subterranean ruin, or astronauts discovering some gargantuan temple on a long-dead alien planet. That's pretty exciting. I have to decide before we go on, folks, whether we want to see someone venturing into the depths below their own sort of home. Like whether it's sort of like a solo, ooh, I wonder what's back here. There's something that's been gnawing away at my mind. Or whether we want to do a group of like mercenaries and archaeologists who are sort of excavating an ancient tomb. Now, those are the two things I'm excited by tonight. So we'll see. No matter who or what your characters are, these things are always true. These things are true. They have an obsessive need or desire to explore and delve deeper into the depths of this newfound place in search of something, and no matter what they find or experience, they will not, or cannot, turn back. I'm going to go with will not until it has to become cannot. Recording your journey so you can make notes, or you can, I'm recording this for posterity. I'll probably upload this to YouTube. I should have put a little, title here. Maybe I'll do that maybe I'll do that a little later. In post! Okay. Again, I'm going to give everyone a sense of how the game works, and we'll go from there, because I want to just dive in. Separate all the face cards, jacks, kings, and queens, and lay them out in piles of each suit. I have them here. The jacks are on top. The kings are at the bottom. Oh, exactly. Oh, reading aloud, I also backed on Kickstarter a game called Don't Play This Game, which is about, a tape or a journal or something that you find that then instructs you, that curses you, and is sort of spreading throughout the world. I'm so jazzed to get a copy of that and get cursed. Okay. So I've got my face cards here. I've got my Descent deck, which is all the other cards in the deck. Classic found evidence. And I have the two jokers laid out side by side as the difficulty tracker. These face-down cards, called the difficulty tracker, will represent the punishment of each journey deeper into the dark, and with each failure, safe passage will become harder and harder to achieve. Shuffle everything else. This is called the Descent deck. Clubs. Hope. To lose hope is to become lost to the darkness, convinced you will never find what you seek or see the light of day again. I have not, Kung Fu Fenris. Please tell me more. I know that some vampires are 1,000 years old or older, but no, tell me more, please. Hearts. To lose this is to become mentally and physically exhausted, drained of strength and clarity. Diamonds. Is your humanity, ironically. Thank you, Kung Fu Fenris, please. And post it in the Discord if you so choose. To lose this is to lose your grip on reality and morality, to become twisted and corrupted beyond recognition. This would probably only... I think this is going to be more interesting if there's multiple people. So this might be a party of 2 or 3. Spades. Your health. To lose this is to physically bleed bend, and break in pursuit of what lies below, to pay your pound of flesh. Whoa. Agree on a general theme or setting. It can be loose, but even a single lightning rod for you to all base your answers on will keep the story feeling consistent. Facing fantasy goblins 1 minute and sci-fi horror monsters the next could be cool, but could be confusing. We're going to be going into, it says here, deep below ground, in a dark and twisting complex that defies understanding. Your characters will be confused and scared by what they see, but they believe there is something at the bottom of the pit that makes the journey worth it. Take a moment to think about who your characters are and what they're trying to achieve by submerging themselves in the depths. What is their name and relation to the others in the group? What skeletons hide in their closets that the darkness could turn against them? What drives them to push on despite the horrors they'll witness? I'm coming up with this on the fly. I'm sure that's going to be obvious to anyone who's done any work with me or watched any of my streams before. But this is going to be a storytelling stream that we're building together. I'm going to introduce what I think will be this sort of hook for today, and we'll go from there. The year is 1986. Tim, we need a better name, Charles. Charles is a man in his late 40s, in good physical condition. He is a wealthy man. He has learned of what he believes is the temple located deep in what we, would call today Saudi Arabia. A temple that holds an artifact said to be, claimed by folklore to be world-shifting. Ooh, thank you, Kung Fu Fenris. Here it goes. Bam. Okay, cool. Oh, sick. Ooh, best rules, best production values. I love that. Thank you very much. Charles is investigating this ancient temple in the hopes of finding an artifact. We'll call it a tome, an ancient tome, that is the repository of all knowledge, the oldest knowledge in the world, predating the Dead Sea Scrolls, and so on and so forth. It is, of course, legendary, probably mythical, but he has it on very good authority that if it is to reside anywhere... Oh, excellent, Kung Fu Fenris. Okay, this is really good. And Kung Fu Fenris, stick around as long as you want for sure. I'd love to know how you feel this goes as we go as well, mechanically and thematically. So, Charles is hoping to find this tome, or at least some of the evidence that might have been contained within it. He is a historian, an anthropologist. He hopes to learn more about history than ever before. And so he is going to be entering this temple. I'm going to say it's in Ankara, actually, which is in Turkey, as opposed to Saudi Arabia. He is taking with him two other people. A local man who he does not know the name of, a big, hulking, kind of essentially a mercenary, a gun for hire, someone who can help schlep their stuff, move their things, someone who can defend them in case they run into, I don't know, wolves in a cave, maybe some sort of people squatting in the temple. He's not overly concerned, but better safe than sorry. Charles has done this kind of tomb raiding stuff before. Charles is also bringing with him Tim. Tim is a librarian and scholar at Oxford University, who is the source of this schlep. To schlep is to... I worked at a theater in the Jewish quartier of Montreal for a long time, Kung Fu Fenris. To schlep things is to move them, to pick them up and bodily move them. So we've got Charles, the money. He's in pretty good condition. He's the driving force. He's the one who wants to know if this tome does not exist, then what information can be gleaned about the people thousands of years ago who lived here. Tim, an Oxford University scholar, translator of old languages, dead languages, and history and arcana, and the nameless mercenary, who has at least a head and a shoulder on both of them. There we go. I've done it. Those are the characters. If you're playing solo, will you be portraying the descent of just one explorer? Your journey begins at the entrance to the depths. This will be the first entry in your story and set the tone for what is to come. What does it look like? How did you discover it? What do you think is down there? It is now time to add... Uh-oh, wrong place. I'm just going to put more music on, team. And I am very excited for this. Maybe I'll cut out some of this stuff later as well. Whoops. Nope, wrong button. I see the problem. There we go. That should be a bit better. As always, of course, let me know if volume is pretty good and so on. If you want an interesting supernatural light show set in Turkey, Midnight at the Pera Palace. I've never even heard of that, Osab. What a great suggestion. Thank you. I'm curious what supernatural light means. It means there's some supernatural elements, but just lightly sprinkled throughout. I'm writing it down. This is why I have seemingly disappeared into my phone. I am interested in playing the game, don't worry. Midnight at Pera Palace. Thank you for the recommendation, Osab. The scorching sun looms not quite directly overhead. It is past noon, but it is still absolutely scorching. Charles. Oh, non-science-based time travel. Whoa, the best kind of time travel. Thanks, Osab. I like it. Charles stands at the entrance to what is essentially just a cave. However, as Tim has just pointed out to him, along the edges of this cave opening, there are some very clear signs that this cave entrance was once man-made. It has since been reclaimed by nature. Some flora, some animal kind of scarring, that sort of thing. But it's clear that at each side used to be ornately carved pillars. Inside the temple, despite the post-noonday sun, it is pitch black. Thankfully, they've brought torches, aka flashlights. Kerosene lanterns, water, food, supplies. No maps. There are no maps of this temple that exist, but paper, pencils to make markings if they need to. Wax paper as well, so they can sort of, or things to make like rubbings of anything they come across. And an empty bag as well that they could use to store any artifacts they come across. Charles believes that they have everything. And so, with a glance back to make sure that no one is following them, because what they are doing is not strictly legal, he motions to Tim, and he motions to the man ahead. The other man that has accompanied them, the hulking man, to step inside with him. What he is assuming will happen, because one of the prompt questions here is, what do you think is down there? Darkness, probably some bats, some snakes, some things like that. Possibly, hopefully, relics of a civilization long gone. Perhaps even some old stone carvings that would give some insight into what it is that they are hoping to find. Take a moment to discuss what your characters are trying to find below. It could be knowledge, riches, wishmaker, safety from what lies above, anything of your choosing. They don't all have to be going down there for the same thing. Charles is seeking this Tome of Knowledge. In his heart of hearts, he believes that it must exist. It is so ludicrous that something like this could have survived, and yet the whispers around it in the academic community have been so strong for so many years that something must exist there. If it is not a literal tome, perhaps it is a figurative one. Tablets, some sort of etching, some sort of belief system, or law system, or knowledge of this ancient society. Exactly, Osab. Something else that Charles believes that they will find, and this has been echoed by Tim on their train ride over to Ankara, or to near Ankara. They believe that they will find information, at least, or hopefully information that will give them insight into what happened to the people who used to live here. Because archaeologically speaking, this place has never been excavated. It's not clear that it's a temple or a man-made structure from the outside, but Tim points out it's not that hard to see if you know what you're looking for. Why has everyone stayed away? The hulking man says nothing. He was promised a paycheck. He will earn his paycheck. But there is a trace of discomfort on his face, and the hairs on the back of his neck prickle. Use your first entry in your log to describe your initial descent. How quickly do you lose the light of the sun? What does the interior of this place feel like, smell like, sound like? With the scene set, you are now ready to play. As they move inside, it is, and you'll forgive the wordplay here, it is as if it is night and day. Quite literally, inside this temple, or this cave structure that they've found, it is almost entirely pure darkness. Despite the sun beating down on them from outside, it does not penetrate past the first few meters into the cave. Almost as if it is being swallowed up by the earth itself. There's a faint aroma of must, mold, and Tim looks excitedly to Charles and sort of comments, "This must mean there's water somewhere up ahead. There must be something creating that smell." But they hear nothing. What they can feel is a pressure, an inward pressure, drawing them in, almost as if there is something that is sucking the air and the light away from the surface. Here is where we get into the mechanics of the game, which I'm reading again for my own benefit and for yours, chat, so that we know what we're doing. It is played, Lost Below the Earth is played in a series of rounds in which you will draw cards from the Descent deck, representing your journey into the darkness and the paths you take and the decisions you make along the way. To start a new round, draw the top card from the Descent deck and place it above or below the first face-down card in your difficulty tracker. You will now be playing a game of higher or lower to determine the results of this exploration. There's a note here about playing with other people, how if it's your turn you have the final say, but it's collaborative storytelling. To descend to the next discovery in your journey safely and without incident, you will need to correctly guess if the next card you draw will be higher or lower in value than the one that you previously drew, continuing until you have drawn more cards than there are face-down ones in the difficulty tracker. I'll point out 2 jokers make up my 2 spots in my difficulty tracker for now. And I will also point out, I wish I had an additional camera. I would do a little top-down view of this, but I do not. In the future, if people are loving the solo RPGs, loving the solo board game play, that sort of thing, let me know, and we'll see if we can get that sorted out, because I think that'd be really cool. Drawing a card of equal value counts as a correct guess. Aces are 1, Jacks 11, Queens 10, Queens 12, and Kings 13, although none of the face cards are currently in the deck. If you manage to lay out more cards than your difficulty tracker, you have momentarily avoided the horrors, and you take respite. After discovering something, use the discovery tables to see what you find. Okay, Kung Fu Fenris is big into the solo RPG idea, and so am I. Do we still have music going here? I think so. Yeah. If you guess incorrectly at any point before you manage the above, stop drawing. You've become lost below the earth, you'll face some creature trap, or worse, in the darkness. Look at the suit of the card you just incorrectly guessed on, place it back into the deck along with the top face card from the pieces of you that matches the suit. Then, you have lost a piece of yourself down here. Look at the loss table, and take a look at the card that you drew, that you, the last card you successfully guessed on, and use the darkness tables to see what it is you faced. I will not necessarily look at all of these right now. I just want people to know generally what the idea is. There's a bit here about interpreting the prompts and so on. Essentially, I'm going to summarize here. I have currently a difficulty track of 2. I'm going to draw a card, and then I'm going to guess whether the next card I draw will be higher or lower. If I am correct, I place it down, and I keep playing until I have more cards than the difficulty tracker. If so, huzzah, I have made a discovery. If I fail, I lose a piece of myself, represented by one of the face card suits, and I have to see an event from the darkness table. These will be prompts to interpret what happens, basically. So we're going to play around, and then we're going to see what happens. When you're interpreting the prompts in the tables, think about the things that have happened to you and your group in the previous sections. Twist the darkness into their own personal horror when answering the questions to come. If at any point you need to add one of the face cards from your supply to the deck, but no cards of that suit are left, your journey has come to an end. Describe the final moments of your descent and what fate becomes of you. It finally broke you. What would those who might discover you find? What were your final words or thoughts? And then, tweaking the game, staying safe. This is a good moment to mention safety. I am the only player at the table today. You all in chat are absolutely open. I'm open to hearing suggestions, thoughts, feelings, reactions to what you're hearing in the story as we build it, today. But I am the only player at the table, per se. However, safety is key. Normally on RPG Clinic, we use safety cards, green, yellow, and red, to represent play on, everything's good despite my appearances, pause, I need to make people aware of something, and stop, which is we need to stop playing, I'm not safe. I don't have my cards tonight. I can still use those signals verbally, and I will, if I need to. I will say yellow, pause, and I will make something known. You in the chat don't have those cards, of course, but if you need to let me know of something in terms of safety, please message me in the chat, no problem. Or you may, of course, leave the stream or the chat if you need to. If you're watching this on VOD and you have feedback, obviously drop it in the chat below. I'm really excited about this solo experience, although I feel like it's, I'm not going to say it's going to be half-baked, but it's definitely a little like, I threw it together. And that's part of the joy of this. I'm really excited just to see what's going to happen tonight. Okay, so there you go. I think that's all I have to say. It says here, if you'd like the possibility of a happy ending, whoops, we're not going to go there. And then there's a discovery table, which we will get to when we discover. So, Charles, Tim, and their hulking companion venture into the darkness, lights illuminating the rough stone walls of the cave. And they can feel the pressure beginning to rise around them, ever so slightly, as the tunnel curves slowly and subtly down below the earth. As they make their way down, the silence only increases. Tim chuckles at how ridiculous it is, how scared he is at nothing. And the laughter echoes off the walls briefly, and then is swallowed up by the darkness. The large hulking man lays a firm hand on Tim's shoulder and simply shakes his head and points ahead at where he swings his torch, perhaps revealing something. An opening? A light up ahead? Let's see. I'm going to draw my first card. It is the 4 of Hearts. I'm going to guess higher. The 9 of Spades. I'm going to guess lower. The 6 of Diamonds. I've got more cards than I have tracker, so I have succeeded. Let's see what it says here. If you manage to lay out more cards than your difficulty tracker without an incorrect guess, put that back on screen, you've momentarily avoided the horrors awaiting you and take respite after discovering something in the depths. Use the discovery tables, beginning on page 20, to see what you find and the answer that it prompts. The prompts it gives you. What? To see what you find and answer the prompts it gives you. Right, okay. Answer being a verb here. Phew. I'd have looked very confident, but I did not feel very confident. Before I do that, I just want to make sure if I understand as well. Right, we only add to the difficulty tracker once things have become harder. So, we simply go to the discovery tables. I agree. Yeah, exactly, Osab, exactly. As it should be, right? IMO. Because you're not going to guess right every time. That's how it goes. Okay, yeah, let's use the last one, which is going to be the 6 of diamonds. Sorry for scrolling through so quickly. As I shuffle these back into the deck. You find something that hints at what wonders you might find along your path. What do you think is coming, and why does it strangely excite you? Well, they had been traveling for probably about 20 to 30 minutes by this point. The ground is relatively even, though sloping downwards. The stone-worked walls are rough, but Tim is quick to point out that it's clear quite a few of them have been, again, good old reliable C. Tim is quick to point out that a lot of the walls have been hewn by hand, at least in parts. Again, reclaimed by time and by nature. Water, maybe air, have eroded at the walls. There are some strange scratches that Tim and Charles both interpret as, mist kind of auger lines. Not auger, that's not what I mean. That's what I mean. But as the hulking man claps a hand on Tim's shoulder and motions forward with his light, it reveals an opening up ahead. The cave narrows momentarily into a very familiar rectangular doorway. It is clear, it is not natural, this is carved, this is made by human hands. And as they step through it, you find something that hints at what wonders you might find along your path. They step into a large, cavernous room, clearly intended as some sort of hall, a place of meeting, a place where people could perhaps mingle, perhaps even dance. Set along the walls are recesses where perhaps once there may have been roaring fires. There are patches of the wall that are quite at regular intervals along the wall, which are slightly different colored from the rest of the wall around them when they shine their lights on them. Perhaps there were once tapestries or hangings there. And despite the fact that the room is essentially bare, it is clear that this room is that once housed many, many people. I agree, Kung Fu Fenris, and I freaking hope that they turn those into social housing. Like, come on. Maybe not this place, because I'm feeling like there might be some sort of a curse attached. But we'll see. We'll see when we get there. Charles squeaks in excitement, and the squeak kind of leaves his mouth, echoes off the ceiling, spins around, and holds out his hands to Tim. Tim, this is proof positive. Tim says, hang on a second. Just because this was naturally made does not mean that it belongs to part of a long-dead civilization. Perhaps people came down here, carved this out of the rock as some sort of underground temple, as some sort of place to celebrate, place to venerate, perhaps. It could be anything. We're going to need more information. And Lemon Eater, hello! Welcome to a solo RPG. Tonight we are playing Lost Below the Earth, which I will very briefly just jump back to the title screen for. This is a RPG, a horror RPG, which is storytellerless or GM-less, as your preference. Tonight I am playing it solo, but of course, folks in the chat are more than free to give me a little bit of a push, if they so desire, to affect the story. Now, I was just at the 6 of Diamonds. We found something that hints at what wonders you might find along your path. What do you think is coming, and why does it strangely excite you? I'm just going to make sure we've still got music going. Yeah. Let's not assume, this is a storytelling game. I can make up whatever I want. As Charles makes his way towards the far wall, so large is this room, by the way, they can't even necessarily tell where the end of this room is. As he starts to make his way along, there is a sudden crunch as the floor beneath his feet changes from solid stone to gravel. And he looks down. The gravel is in fact a very coarse sand, not naturally occurring in this cave, at least not to his knowledge. He sweeps his flashlight around and notices that this ring of sand extends, well, it makes a perfect sort of circle and slopes a little further downwards. And when he shines his flashlight further, in the center of this ring of sand, this pit, is a stairway. The unmistakable shape of stairs that venture down deeper below the earth. Tim is quaking in his boots a little bit, certainly. He doesn't know quite what to make of this. If this place was, indeed used as perhaps a temple to the gods or as a place of celebration, why would there be built into the middle of the room what is essentially an open pit? Stairs or no, it's dangerous. Despite the many fires that once burned, perhaps the tapestries that hung, whatever was down here, unless they could cover this up, this is simply a massive open pit here. What purpose could it have served? And more importantly, where does it lead? The hulking man shines his light and looks at Charles questioningly. Charles nods vigorously. And he turns to Tim. If there's anything to be found, it will have to be down here. Tim quickly checks along the walls just to see if there's any other rooms. And notices indeed that there are no other, at least obvious, exits or entrances from this room. The only way forward is down. I agree, Lemon Eater, so let us play another round. A 2 of spades. I'm going to guess higher. A 9 of hearts. I'm going to guess lower. I didn't make it. Ruh-roh. Where is it here? If you guess incorrectly at any... aces are 1s. They are low. If you guess incorrectly at any point before you manage the above, which is to reach 1 further than the difficulty tracker, stop drawing. You have become lost below the earth and will face something. Look at the suit of the card that you just incorrectly guessed on. Place it back into the descent deck along with the top face card from the pieces of you that matches that suit. I'm going to leave them here just for now. You have lost a piece of yourself. Look at the lost table and take a note of how your characters have changed as a result of what you've experienced. Nothing really bad has happened yet, so I think we're going to have to see what we've encountered so far. Next, look at the last card you successfully guessed on. It's a 9. That was the last card I successfully guessed on. Use the darkness tables to see what it is that you faced or discovered. Take note of the prompt before placing that card face down at the end of your difficulty tracker. Well, there you go. Okay. So this is now going to be harder. Charles in the lead, the hulking man behind him, their steps echoing off the stone as Tim's breathing becomes a bit more ragged as they descend the spiral staircase. Let's go have a look. We're looking at the Lost table, and I think I actually want to look at the Darkness table first. I want to look at the Darkness table first. This was the Hearts, and the last one I correctly guessed was the 9. For a while, someone or something is separated from you. What worrying change do you notice upon their return? Classic, because you know what I was just thinking? This is a little spooky, actually, that this is the prompt I just got. I was thinking Charles descends, the hulking man behind him, and the ragged breathing of Tim disappears for an instant. And they turn around, and he is gone. Charles calls for Tim, and his voice eerily does not seem to echo the way that it once did. It seems to simply fall from his mouth and die, as it ventures not up into the room above, but down into the darkness below. Now let's have a look next at the Lost table, because I want to see... Whoopsie doodles. But you are willing to die to find... So metal. Where are ya? Here, 36. Sorry, guys, this is probably very annoying. Here we go. Your journey has taken its toll on your body. You are littered with cuts and bruises, though the damage is mostly superficial. Okay. So, it's a physical injury, right? Where is it? Just want to remember what the face cards are for. Hearts represent mentally and physically exhausted, drained of strength and clarity. Okay. Okay. The Jack and the 10 are going back in. The 9 of Hearts becomes my next difficulty tracker level. Charles gasps as he realizes Tim was right behind him on the stairwell. Venturing a few steps up, he shines his light at the wall nearest to the stairwell and indeed spies a small crevice. It looks far too small for a person to fit into, but there is air behind it. As he gets close, he can feel something. He tries to reach an arm through to see if maybe Tim is there, and it becomes wedged between the stone. He calls out to the hulking man, "Hey, hey, help!" The hulking man turns, steps back up the stairs, and starts to pull and wrench at Charles to try to get him out of the rock. When he comes back out, or when he is returned, as it were, when he is freed, his arm is whole, intact. It feels a little numb from being trapped between the rock. Scraped, bruised, certainly. But the very tips of his fingers are black. And in the darkness, it's hard to tell. They only have 2 lights now, a flashlight and a kerosene lantern. But by the light of the lamps, it almost appears that the tips of his fingers are fuzzy. Thank you very much, Saren Zero. Hitting another person with a gift sub. Very much appreciated. Happy frickin' holidays, Saren Zero. That's very, very kind. I really appreciate it. As always. Ugh, what a sweetheart. Is that your cat again, Saren? It's me just shuffling. He calls again for Tim, and his call goes unanswered. His fingers seem to... Whoa! Lemon Eater! Thank you. This will be great on the VOD. I appreciate it. The VOD crowd can tell me... The VOD crowd can see that I am well loved. Yes, you did, Lemon Eater. Hell yeah. Love it, guys. Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you all. Thank you all for being here. Okay, we're back to it. As the hype train continues, feel free to donate bits and subs if you want to get in on this hype train, because there might be some fun emotes in it for you. Who knows? I'm going to continue. The scrapes and bruises on Charles's arm, not so bad. The journey down this stairwell takes a bit of a toll. It seems to extend downward a long, long way. He notes with some horror that the stairwell keeps... It never closes in, if that makes sense. It's always pressed against the outer walls of this shaft or pit as it descends down further and further. In other words, the center has been open the whole way. And when he looks back up, he can no longer see the room above. When they reach the bottom, Charles is startled when his foot touches something much softer than the stone it has been treading these past hours. It's hard to tell exactly. He yelps and points his flashlight down, and there, a piece of fabric. A tent? One of his tents. And emerging from within is Tim. Tim looks up at Charles, beams wide, greets his friend. "Oh, you're back. Did you manage to find the source of the sound?" And Charles looks at him, looks at the hulking man who just shakes his head and points further into the darkness behind them. The flashlights and the lanterns do not show far enough into the darkness to tell how large the room is at the bottom of this pit. And in the center of where the stairs kind of encircle the bottom of this pit structure, as it were, is nothing. More stone. Smooth, polished, but nothing. Charles crouches down and looks at Tim and asks him how long he has been waiting for his return. And Tim just shrugs and smiles. "I don't know. It feels like just a couple of minutes. We made it down the stairs. You told me to set up camp." Ooh, I like it, Lemon Eater. I'm going to come back to it. It's a good idea. He simply smiles and says, we set up the camp, we're here, we set up the camp. You told me that you would take the first watch, that you would investigate a little bit to find the source of that sound. And Charles says, "What sound?" And Tim goes, "You know." And all of a sudden, the sound of nails on a chalkboard, but far away, very distant. It's hard to... It wouldn't be that exactly, but it's that same kind of screeching that seems to be at a sort of a middle pitch, somewhere in the range of what could be a human voice, but is clearly inhuman. Charles wildly swings his flashlight around, having never heard this sound before. Tim just nods. You get used to it. And indeed, looking closer at the bottom of where the stairs meet this smooth floor, the jagged edge of the stone stairwell stepping down into that final area, there are indeed small bits of something. Marble chips. He pulls one out and with horror realizes it is curved. And as it turns to dust in his hand, he realizes it is a fingernail. He doesn't know what has happened to Tim, but Tim seems to believe that something else has happened to him down here than has actually done so. They're not quite sure what to make of this. Charles looks to his hulking companion and says, "This, I think we're getting more than we bargained for." Hey, thanks for the hype train, everybody. Better luck next time. I still appreciate it, both y'alls. Thank you. The hulking man simply touches his chest and says, "Gus," and then nods once more and points into the darkness and nods. He withdraws from his pocket a small length of pipe and motions to Charles to note that he does indeed have a knife at his hip, points to the one at Charles's hip, and nods again. Charles takes out the hunting knife, holds it somewhat unsteadily in his hand. Tim, smiling the whole while, gets up. So you didn't find out where that sound was coming from? Maybe we should go investigate. And turning around, Charles catches a glimpse of Tim's eyes, that same black, sort of almost static, in them for a moment, and then it vanishes. Let's play another round. The 5 of spades. I'm going to guess higher. The 6 of diamonds. Whew, I'm going to guess higher. The 7 of clubs, very interesting. I have to get one more. The 7 of clubs is tough. I'm going to guess higher. The 8 of diamonds. I didn't do that on purpose, team. I've shuffled this deck. It's pretty exciting. Which means we venture off into the darkness. Once more. If you manage to lay out more cards than your difficulty tracker, you have momentarily avoided the horrors awaiting you in the dark, and take respite after discovering something in the depths. Let's go to page 20. We're looking for the 8 of diamonds as a suggestion. You find something that does not belong here. Why do you covet it? Well, I like that very much. Let's see. I'm going to shuffle these back in the meantime. Charles's breathing starts to become a little more tense as he moves forward. The light illuminating ahead of them, but barely able to illuminate what kind of room they're in, let alone how large it is. And it suddenly, and without any sort of warning, they are upon the end of the room. And there, a metal grate. Vertical, like a vertical grate. Like an elevator cage grate. Charles looks at Tim and at the hulking man Guz with some apprehension, reaches out towards it, and indeed, with a little bit of prying because it's rusted with age, manages to wrench open this cage. Inside, a small box. Uses his light to look up. Indeed, cables above. He looks to the side. What seems to be some sort of control panel for it. The year is 1986. He assumes that this temple is well over 4,000 years old, because it is said to contain something from predating the Dead Sea Scrolls. Well over? Yeah, something like that. Let's say that. But, what do I want to say about that? But this is, quite clearly a relatively modern invention. He doesn't recognize the controls, though. This large box seems to kind of go nowhere. It seems to be hooked into the ground somehow. A little pillar that it's sitting on. But there's no power source that's obvious. The sort of wheels, the cables, and wheels above this box, elevator-like structure, don't seem to be connected to anything. And yet, when he ventures back towards and looks, you can just make out past the grate that indeed this structure seems to open into another shaft going down. He looks at the controls once more, and then motions to Tim to come over and take a look. Tim sidles over and starts interpreting, and starts kind of looking at it as well, and shrugs. And then a flash of recognition as his finger goes to one of the symbols on this sort of strange control panel. And he says, I think that might be... He's like, it almost looks like some sort of proto-Aramaic language. He's like, it bears some resemblance to Aramaic, but it's nothing like anything I've ever seen before. And this is the only symbol, but it looks an awful lot like the symbol for riches, wealth, knowledge, future. Oh, shit, Lemon Eater, that'd be awesome. But, Lemon Eater, we're going to have to find out. Lost Below the Earth, as we know now, contains some prompts, so we're going to have to see. This device seems to have on it at least one symbol that prompts Charles to believe that perhaps this goes down further into the earth to, what? Yields wealth? Knowledge? He wonders out loud to Guz and Tim whether, like, who put this in? Was this installed more recently? The technology of the elevator, quote unquote, looks to be about 80 years old, but no one can make heads nor tails of the symbols on the actual control panel, if that is indeed what it is. Tim taps it a few times and then shrugs. And they both look to Guz, who motions his flashlight again towards the elevator and nods towards it. Down, is all he says. Charles stands in front of Guz. If you know anything about this place and you haven't let us know yet, I think it's time for you to spill the beans. Guz, have you ever been here before? Guz shakes his head emphatically. What have you heard tell of this place? Guz blinks a couple of times, looks to Charles, and says, cursed. Charles smirks. Guz claps him on the shoulder and shakes his head again, and he says, cursed. And then he steps forward into the box, the elevator shaft. Charles steps forward as well and tells Tim, why don't you try flipping the switch, see what happens, and then come and join us. Charles is looking around for any sort of controls in the actual elevator itself, if that is indeed what it is. And Tim punches a couple of buttons on this control panel, flips a switch, and it shudders to life. The cables above squealing as it starts to move downward. Tim runs, but can't make it in time. He shouts down after them, "We'll send it back up and I'll take the next one down." His voice dies on his lips very, very, very quickly. As Charles and Guz find themselves plunged once more into darkness as this elevator continues to move down. I'm going to shuffle once more. Let's play another round. Whoops. Helps if I actually shuffle. What are we thinking so far about the story, guys? Does it need a twist? The Eight of Spades. I'm going to get... Yeah! Hell yeah, Lemon Eater. This is a lot of... actually, this is a lot of free music from Kevin MacLeod at freesound.org. Nope. I think it's freesound.org. Anyway. Great composer of, like, free music. And I used a lot of it for 10 Candles. In fact, I think these are basically all my playlists from 10 Candles. Eight of Spades. I am going to guess higher. That was a bad choice. Haven't I seen this Six of Diamonds? The elevator squeals and starts to slow as our good friends Guz and Charles start to panic just a little bit as it starts to slow. If you manage to lay out more cards... Nope, that's not the run. Here we go. Look at the suit of the card you just incorrectly guessed on. Place it back into the descent deck, along with the top face card of the pieces of you. That's the Jack of Diamonds. Look at the last card you successfully guessed on, or if you failed at the first hurdle, the card you drew. 8 of Spades. So this will be my darkness table, and this is the piece of me that has been lost. So, let's do that. Let's look at the 8 of Spades first. You hear something guttural in the distance. What does it sound like? What do you fear might be causing it? Holy shit, that is terrifying. I think the Jack of Diamonds is like humanity. I have to check. The squealing is the sound of the cables sort of slowing down, being, ungreased for many, many years. It's foolish to think that this thing might have worked. Charles curses himself for being such a fool. How are they going to get out when it would appear that the elevator's seemingly moving down shafts of rock, when suddenly they are greeted by a blast of cool air as it opens into darkness. Up ahead, the sound of running water. And as he takes a step towards it greedily, Guz grabs him by the shoulder and holds him back, motioning for him to be silent. The sound of running water quickly transforms into the sound of a bubbling breath. It is perhaps sounds like the snoring of a great beast. Constant as the flow of water, but deep, dark, and currently slumbering. Charles has no idea what possibly could be causing such a large sound that sounds almost human. The Jack of Diamonds is the thing I just lost. You find yourself questioning your own actions, thoughts that are not your own linger in the back of your mind. The darkness up ahead almost expands and contracts with the sound of this guttural breath, this breathing of something. And as Charles looks back at Guz, who still has his hand on his shoulder and his finger to his lips, he sees that strange, dark flickering in Guz's eyes, the one that was in Tim's. He looks down at his own hand, recognizing somehow within the core of himself that darkness, that flickering darkness, was the same thing that was afflicting his own fingertips, and notices with some horror that all of the nails on his right hand seem to have vanished. When he looks closer, they are still there, but they are no longer visible to him. He can feel them, but he cannot see them. The tips of his fingers are still present. He can still feel that they exist, but they seem to be becoming one with the darkness. Thanks, Craggood. I think it's really cool, too. He looks with some panic and fear back towards Guz. And Guz grunts, steps forward, knife and lantern raised. Charles moves out behind him. With a sudden crash, the gate of the elevator closes behind them. And when he turns around, there is nothing there. No metal, just smooth stone wall. He clasps his hands onto it, trying to find where it opened. He just came out of here, and then starts to move his flashlight along the wall. Perhaps he's simply become disoriented. He stepped out and turned around, turned to the left, turned to the right. And just at the edge of his vision, just at the edge of the light as it sweeps along the wall behind him, the stone, rough and pitted, abruptly changes to some sort of mosaic mural. Reds, browns, golds, is rich and wealthy. and Guz's hand reaches out and smashes his light into the ground. Charles leaps back, his gasp of shock breaking the air like a crack. He looks at Guz, and Guz once again puts his fingers to his lips. Let's play another round. The breathing continues unabated. The Ace of Hearts. I'm gonna guess higher. The 5. I'm gonna guess higher. Oh shoot! Sorry, I lost, didn't I? I lost, so I have to add to the difficulty tracker. Oh man, I can't remember now. It was... I can't remember. I'm just gonna grab a random number. I think it was a... Actually, I should know exactly what it was because I still have the prompts. Roll that tape! It was the... 8 of Spades? 8 of Spades. The 8 of Spades. That was the... No, that was the one after. So it had to be the one before that I incorrectly guessed. I'm just gonna throw in a random card. My difficulty tracker's at 4. That's the key. I did forget to do that. So now it's going to become harder to get this correctly. So down here, elevator shaft, strange elevator that does not belong, has gone. A mosaic, a mural of some kind. Guz is broken, Charles is light, Tim is missing. Let's actually throw in some more music, eh? Where are you? There you go. And that strange kind of bubbling breathing sound continues unabated. 3 of Diamonds. I'm going to guess higher. Whoops. I almost drew 2 cards there. 8 of Clubs. I'm going to guess lower. Is that safe? Yeah, slower. Nice. 3 of Hearts. I'm going to guess higher. Motherfucker. That's unfortunate. It's the hubris of it that can get you. The odds are in your favor, and yet sometimes you trip. The odds are in your favor, and yet sometimes that 1 in a million chance comes good, not directed towards you. Queen of Diamonds is my piece of me that's missing. 2 of Diamonds goes back in, which is nice. At least that's a nice low card to go back in. And the 3 of Hearts is the darkness prompt. I want to know if we're moving towards the mural, towards the sound of the breathing of the large creature, if it is indeed a creature. And I want to know about the piece of me that's missing. We'll look at the prompts and then we'll decide. Whole sections of activity seem to pass by without your knowledge or consent. You find yourself in the middle of events that you do not remember starting. That is interesting because some of what's just happened to Charles doesn't seem real. Much like Tim expressing, oh, you've been gone for a couple of hours, where were you? Similarly, I think Charles has discovered himself in a situation where what he thinks he sees is not indeed what he is seeing. That horrible screeching sound tears through the air again and then is abruptly gone. Let's also have a look at the 3 of Hearts from the Darkness table. The labyrinthine passages have you turned around and walking in circles. What do you lose in the process? Well, this is easy. This is easy, my friends. So the 3 of Hearts goes into my difficulty tracker. There we go. The Queen of Diamonds. The piece of me goes in along with the rest of the cards. We're down to 1 diamond left. Guz has smashed Charles's light on the ground, and yet when Charles goes to try to pick it up, it is not simply on the ground, broken into pieces. It has been shattered. It's a flashlight. It's not a glass vase, and yet somehow every single scrap, every single almost atom of it has been exploded outwards around the floor. It's as if it has been turned to dust. Guz is already venturing off into the darkness away from this strange mural. And Charles has to struggle to keep up. He sees the lantern bobbing up ahead. But no matter how fast Charles moves in the darkness, it seems to be growing more and more distant. Until it disappears around the corner. Charles races after it, arms outstretched, but as the light disappears, so too does his sense of how far away it was. He stretches out his arms, continues to move forward, and feels nothing. No wall, nothing but air. That strange, burbling, breathing sound has vanished behind him, as has what he believes to be a beautiful mural of ancient design, a mosaic. He calls after Charles, but as he opens his mouth, he calls after Guz, but as he opens his mouth to shout, he finds that words cannot leave his lips. It's strange, he can breathe normally, but it's as if the pressure of this place is forcing him to hold his words within his own throat. He takes a deep breath, which is normal, and then again tries to speak. Nothing. I have to sneeze. Excuse me. Charles crouches down onto the ground, taking deep breath after deep breath, trying not to panic. Thank you, Lemon Eater. Opens his pack and reaches inside. A spare flashlight, a wind-up one, and a couple of flares. He has also some of the rations, some of the water, etc. He takes a sip of the water from the canteen, and he feels it pass his lips, but then he hears it splatter on the ground. Must have run over his lip. He takes another sip, and a gulp of water ventures down his throat, and then simply, again, he can hear it splatter on the floor. He takes out the other flashlight and begins to wind and crank. A wind-up flashlight, for those who have ever used it. I had one growing up, and I thought it was the funniest thing. I don't remember if my father was an engineer, so I'm not actually sure if... Quick asides for Scott history. My father was an engineer. I'm not actually sure if he made this one or not. I was never clear on that. But lore drop. But what is funny to me is that I always assumed a wind-up flashlight, you would wind it for a long time, and it would like essentially store that kinetic energy as potential energy in a battery somehow. I don't know how. And when you actually went to use it, it would convert that energy into light. Right? Like, that's the theory of how it works. But in practice, this wind-up flashlight, you could wind it for as long as you wanted, and you would get about 3 squeezes of this light out of it, no matter how long you wound it for. So essentially, you had to basically just keep going. You had to keep winding it forever if you wanted to use it. It's pretty exhausting in a way. Mr. Lemon Eater's dad was also an engineer and made all sorts of funny-looking but practical things. Exactly, Lemon Eater. And I think that's awesome. Honestly, I think that's absolutely fabulous. I think it's very cool. I wish I had that kind of mind, you know? Yeah, I suppose, Lemon Eater. It just seems really lame. Talk about practical. This was wildly impractical. I always wondered, like, you know, oh, like, what if there was a power outage and we ran out of batteries? We could use this wind-up flashlight. No, you couldn't. You can't use it for anything. It doesn't do anything. Like, you could continually wind it and squeeze it. Like, it just wouldn't be very useful. At any rate, the wind-up flashlight that Charles has, better. He starts to wind it. He turns it on. He is indeed in a hallway. The ceiling stretches above him. He cannot tell how far. Ahead of him, impossible to tell the distance. To his left, a very similar looking mosaic. Let's play another round. because this won't be the last round, but because of how the health system works, the hit points, as it were. But I want to see if we come across something good and make a discovery, or if we have to run from the discovery of what is on this mural. I haven't even, like, decided yet. Is there, like, a monster? Is there, like, a psychological kind of... Is this place just, like, kind of... Does it bend your mind? Is there a big mummy? I don't know. Get your suggestions in now! A 3 of spades. I'm gonna guess higher and not be wrong again. Fuck me. I mean, I said I wasn't gonna be wrong, so I should have guessed. The ace of spades goes back in. We lose another piece of ourselves, the jack. Just gonna turn that down. Fatigue is beginning to take its hold on you. The descent seems endless and every step drains you of a little more energy. We've already lost both of our companions. It's not feeling great. I probably should have brought a bigger party. Oh, damn it. The ace of spades... Sorry, I keep forgetting what it does. The last card I drew goes on the end as an additional notch in the difficulty tracker. Boop! We're up to 6 in the difficulty tracker, by the way. I think we're just into the darkness at this point, I don't think. Which makes sense. I think Charles is in trouble. Just the very act of taking the water, setting his bag down, rifling through it, pulling out the flares, making sure he still has his hunting knife, and cranking the flashlight to reveal part of the mosaic before him has left Charles feeling winded. Is the air somehow thinner down here? It feels fine. He's not having any trouble breathing. Or is he? The mere thought of breathing sends him into a small panic. That's my descent deck over there. And my darkness is the 3 of spades. So let's go have a look. You see someone human in the distance. In fact, you recognize them. As you reach where they were standing, they have vanished. Who were they? Who were they? Why is it impossible for them to be here? I'm going to ask Lemon Eater, who may still be in the chat, or anyone who's still in the chat. Is it Tim? Or is it someone from Charles's past? Who is up ahead as he look? No! Sorry. I'll shout. I'll shout. I'm gonna... Sorry. I had a better thought. I'll still ask the question. Is it Tim or is it someone else? But, yes, he sees them in the distance. But first, Charles trains his wind-up flashlight over the length and breadth of a massive mural in front of him. A mosaic. As I mentioned before, vivid, dark reds, golds, browns, vivid colors in this mosaic. And it's so large, it's kind of hard to piece together what it is. The feeling it gives is one of rich contemplation. I appreciate Osab, I appreciate Kung Fu Fenris. Lemon Eater did get to it first. And yet, almost directly where he is looking, in this mosaic, there is a figure, just a couple of tiles tall. Looking at the tiles directly, it's obviously just a brown tile on top of a black tile, with a red tile to the side. It's just a series of tiles in this mosaic. But Charles, stepping back ever so slightly, understands immediately that it is meant to represent Tim. He does not know how. It's not obvious. It's not even human. And yet it is obviously meant to be representative of Tim. He tries to blot out the part of his mind that is screaming at him that this is impossible. Because it is impossible. It is impossible that this mosaic, which for all intents and purposes must be at least 1,000 years old, if not much, much older, could possibly have anyone on it who is here in this day and age, and yet, Charles drags the flashlight up to see if there's anything above, and is surprised to find that the mosaic is incomplete. In fact, it is no mosaic at all. It is simply part of a wall. And here, the picture window is open. He thought this was a hallway, whereas in fact it is a window. And the light reveals off in the distance, indeed, the figure of Tim. The man raises his arm and calls out something. There is the sound of human voice, despite the fact that Charles cannot seem to speak. He tries to open his mouth and shout, but nothing comes out, just breath. He steps up and over through the picture window and begins to race down the hall. It's a strange feeling. He can almost... It's almost as if he's watching himself run. The intense fatigue of this place obviously is driving him to some distraction. And despite the fact that he keeps the man in his sights the whole way as he is running, the figure of Tim, like a mirage, simply waves and vanishes as he approaches. You know how a mirage looks real until you kind of angle yourself slightly differently? It's as if just getting closer to this image completely changes his perspective. And Charles finds himself staring not at Tim, but at a magnificent waterfall. Yeah, let's go with that. I'm allowed to discover things just because I haven't just because I haven't won a round and got a discovery table. The water makes the water actually makes surprisingly little noise considering how much is falling from far up in the sky. Perhaps even as high up as that spiral staircase they ventured down, what feels like days ago now. And it disappears below him. He can sort of vaguely make out the fact that it seems to be splashing into some sort of perhaps underground lake or something, but he can barely hear it. The sound of roaring water is instead replaced by a hushed, guttural breathing, almost a snoring. He is briefly reminded of his wife at home, his little baby. Is that bad that he would abandon his wife and child? Fuck it, doesn't matter. The story's not about them. They might go on a little revenge rampage and Lost Below the Earth too. We'll see. You can remember when his son was very, very young, he would sometimes stop breathing in the middle of the night and then snort and continue on. The doctor told him this was very natural. Not sleep apnea, nothing like that. This is simply children's breathing apparatus not being particularly well developed. As a quick pause, not a yellow card pause, but just a pause. I, Scott Humphrey, am not a pediatrician, so I assume this isn't true. But I'm going to say it is for the purposes of the story. This waterfall sounds almost like that. It sounds almost like his infant son's interrupted snores, but on a much grander scale. He looks up towards the source of the water, vanished, down towards the direction of the water, and on either side. Let's play another round. I think things are coming to a head here. I have a feeling that Charles is going to have to make some pretty good discoveries pretty soon. The 7 of diamonds. This bodes really poorly. Just give it a kick. Well, that's it, reading aloud. Maybe we just need to kick this whole temple down. Who knows? I'm going to go higher. 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 A tie is a win. Tie is a win. I'm going to go higher. If I draw the 7s, I'll be thrilled. 9. I'm going to go lower. Oof. Okay, 2. I'm going to go higher. Holy shit, if I get a discovery out of this. 7. Fuck. I'm going to go higher. Oh, so close. The 6 of Hearts becomes my new difficulty tracker. I lose a piece of myself. The Queen of Hearts. And the 7 will be the darkness tracker. Let's have a look. Oh, no, Roger Twy, that was Paul Prospero. Paul Prospero went on vacation. I, on the other hand, Scott Humphrey, am here. I am on vacation. It's holiday time. Yeah, me too, Oseb. What are you gonna do? It's a roll of the dice, isn't it? I mean, there's a certain amount of probability involved and stuff, but we're just here for fun, right? Roger Twy, I'll give you the lowdown of what we're doing here. If you don't, I don't know if you've been lurking or not, but I'll just give you the quick lowdown. We're playing an RPG tonight, Lost Below the Earth. Here, I'll give you the... Whoop! I have to be very careful with my mouse because it's right near a candle. Lost Below the Earth, a game by Michael Whelan. Excellent. Roger Twy, you're already caught up. Charles, a wealthy archaeologist explorer type, sort of a Lara Croft-esque, or a Lara Croft's father. It is reading aloud. The candle is very safe. So Charles has ventured forth with his Oxford University academic friend, compatriot, whatever, Tim, and a big hulking, locally hired man named Guz. They ventured towards an old, what they believe to be a temple in Ankara, or near Ankara, in Turkey in the desert. They have ventured down below, found a large chamber, in the middle of which was a huge spiral staircase. Perhaps, as it was suggested, a sacrificial pit. They ventured down. Tim vanished, but then reappeared at the bottom of the stairway. Weird. They heard strange sounds. They found an elevator, relatively modern, 80 years old instead of 8,000 years old, contraption that took them down. It vanished as well. Guz took off into the darkness, leaving Charles alone. Charles discovered a beautiful mosaic on which was the figure of Tim. He just knew it. Ventured ahead. The mirage of Tim vanished, and he was left looking at a beautiful waterfall. That was unfortunately that was really close to a discovery, but it's okay. I'm gonna look at the darkness table for the 7 of Hearts first. Tensions are dangerously high. What argument or inner turmoil erupts? I guess this would be a good time to look at the Queen of Hearts as well, which is the piece of me that I'm missing. You have suffered so many minor injuries now that you cannot find a part of you that remains unscathed. To crawl feels like dragging your body over a bed of broken glass. I have read it, Roger Twy. I quite like it. Or I liked it. I mean, it was... Coming to a halt in front of this water, Charles is so tempted to reach out for it and touch the waterfall, have the strange sounding kind of like water heal him. He notices with some horror that his hand is now no longer visible at all. He examines it from every angle, but it is as if it has been amputated. Roger Twy, I don't know, they wrote a whole song for me to remember and everything, and it's just so hard, you know? Don't go... You know, it's like, I just don't know. I need a catchier tune. Charles cannot see his hand at all. He reaches out and grabs it. It's there. He can feel it with his other hand and with the sense of his body. It simply just does not look like it is there. His backpack as well. He knows it's on his back. He can feel that it's on his back, and yet it does not stretch into his peripheral vision the way it once did. When he takes it off his back, it's still there, but when he puts it back on, it's as if it vanishes into the darkness behind him. It doesn't really make sense. Charles is terrified that this place is stealing the very essence of his soul away from him. And he looks down at where the water is going. He realizes that this journey towards knowledge, this tome that he was looking for, this place was indeed inhabited. It must have been. People came down here. People built that chamber. People built the stairwells. They built this labyrinth of tunnels with mosaics. And yet, what is it that they understand? What does the water hold? What secrets does the water hold? He reaches out with his hand that is no longer visible, and suddenly, when he places it in the water, it is. His hand shimmers and ripples behind the waterfall, but he can see it. And yet when he withdraws his hand, it's as if it's not there. He can feel the water streaming off of it. Places his hand back in, it is visible again. With a gasp of understanding and realization, he starts to remove his shirt, leaving it behind, getting ready to leap into the water below. Let's play another round. So Roger Twy, the mechanics of this RPG, because it's storyteller-less, GM-less, the mechanics of this game, you can play with as many people as you want, is that I have here the face cards of all the suits as sort of trackers for my health, sanity, various things like that. I also have a difficulty tracker in front of me, which I've been adding to as I fail. I'm going to basically draw cards from the Descent deck, which is all the other cards in the deck, and play a game of higher or lower. If I succeed enough times, i.e. get past the end of the difficulty tracker, then I discover something. If I fail, well, we've already somewhat seen what happens here. A Jack of Spades. I'm going to guess lower. A tie is also a win. 6 of Diamonds. I'm going to guess higher. Motherfucker. It's the higher on the low cards that's been getting me every time. Exactly, Roger Twy. So, the 4 of Spades becomes my new difficulty tracker, and the 6 of Diamonds is my darkness discovery, and I lose the last piece of my diamond self. Ooh. Now, as a reminder, I'm going to go back to the rules, because I have a feeling I know what this means. I have to find it here. Scott, have you attacked the darkness? I mean, not yet. Should I? Should I try? Diamond self. Exactly, Lemon Eater. Just, you know, just Lucy in the sky with diamonds. There we go. This phase of your descent, I collect all the cards you drew, add them back to the descent deck, the display. Okay. Where am I looking at here? The end is what I'm looking for. If at any point you need to add one of the face cards from your supply to the deck, but no cards of that suit are left, your journey has come to an end. Okay. So, now, the piece of myself that I lost is the King of Diamonds. That's the last diamond. And my dark discovery, or darkness table, is the 6 of Diamonds. Excellent. Oh, guys. Oh, gang. The 6 of Diamonds is down here. Oh, sorry, I thought you could see my, there we go. You find something that sparks an uncomfortable memory. How do you react poorly? And I'll go here as well, too. The King of Diamonds. Every waking moment is an illusion or mirage to you. You cannot tell life from dream, right from wrong. Some moments you forget your name or why you came here. When the memories come back, you swear they are not your own. Charles leaps from the stone ledge, and for one glorious moment he is bathed in the cool, refreshing waters of this waterfall that he has been chasing. Yes, TLC, come sue me. Please don't, actually. I respect the hell out of you guys. I'm just going to put a bit more... I don't think we need that music yet, actually. I think we're good. For one brief shining moment, he is enveloped in this beautiful, cool water all over his skin. And as he plummets down towards where he assumes the water will break in a large underwater lake of some kind, his mind starts to reel under the weight of memory. He realizes in an instant, if our brains were forced to recall every single event, every single feeling, every single moment of our lives, the burden of existence would drive us to the brink of insanity within 20 years. It is because we forget that we are able to survive. And yet in this waterfall, this beautiful, plunging, underwater river, he recalls details about his childhood that he never thought he even experienced. The smell of the fresh-cut grass on his first day of school, the way the driver who took him there tipped his cap and winked at him and called him Master Charles as if it was a joke between them, the way his mother looked at him when he was still an infant in the crib, the sound that his baby made inside its mother's womb, the feeling of him inside his own mother's womb, the feeling of being nothing more than a fetus. The weight of these memories accumulates and accumulates and accumulates until it smashes down and he breaks the surface of the water below. Underneath, all is serene and quiet and peaceful, but it is heavy. He is trapped within the weight of 1,000,000 moments of memory of his own life. Moments he wishes he could relive, moments he wishes he could change. Regret, longing, hope, fear. Because if Charles still has one thing, it is hope. It is the hope that he will find the Tome of Knowledge, whatever, that he is looking for. Knowledge of how ancient civilizations reacted. The knowledge of how this ancient civilization conducted its life, the way that it grew and then died. And as Charles bursts out of the surface of this water, that strange guttural sound he heard from the waterfall hitting the lake pounds in his ears, and it is no longer the sound of muttered, guttural breathing or water smashing into water. It is the sound of thousands of voices, all muttering their stories. The stories of what it feels like to be alive, the stories of what it feels like to die, the stories of what it feels like to not feel anything anymore. Charles begins to paddle, desperately for shore, but not knowing which direction he's going. The lake feels very heavy. A lake of lives and memory. This is pretty sweet, guys. I didn't think this was going to go this way, but I'm actually quite impressed by this. Let's give this a good shuffle. I would love a discovery before running out. But IMO, Charles has already discovered what the secret of this place is. The question is whether or not he can decipher it before he loses part of himself. The 4 of diamonds. I'm gonna guess higher. The 9 of diamonds. Fucking diamonds, man. I'm gonna guess lower. The Queen of Hearts goes to the end of my track. The 9 of diamonds would indicate that I would lose the last piece of myself from the diamond suit, but I'm all out of diamonds. So, I'm just going to quickly note for myself And I wish I could show you all. My difficulty tracker is at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I just placed a 9th. So that is, if I'm not mistaken, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rounds we've played, plus an 8th where I did not have to add one. So you can see how, with luck, this game could go to 10, 12, etc. Let's, however, go back to the part. Whoop, where is it? If at any point you need to add one of the face cards from your supply to the deck, but no cards of that suit are left, your journey has come to an end. Describe the final moments of your descent and what fate becomes of you. What finally broke you? What would those who might discover you find? What were your final words or thoughts? I am curious. I'm just going to see if the 9 of Diamonds... I'm going to look at both the 9 of Diamonds Darkness and the 9 of Diamonds Discovery and see if either of them are interesting to me here. Oh, that's really... Reading aloud. May I ask why? That's very cool. You find a shrine to some foreign deity. Why is this being's presence still felt even after you have moved on? That's really good. I'm going to look at the 9 of Diamonds Discovery just to see, but that's really good. You find a piece of material or parchment which seems to have been written on. Despite its unfamiliar glyphs, what meaning do you glean from it? Holy shit, what good prompts for what we're doing here, guys. Oh, storytelling. Am I right? Awesome. Reading aloud, first of all, I have to compliment you highly. We haven't finished the game yet, so I will finish the story momentarily. I just want to say, fucking rock on. I love it. I wish I had any skill in coding. Could I learn? Yes. Kate taught herself. I think that's awesome. Maybe I should. And I just think, fucking great. And I love that you're using it for both creative purposes and to level up your own skills. Now, I'm going to combine these prompts for the end. Charles basically washes ashore. His arms have long since given out. But as he climbs out of the water, the darkness is so absolute that he can no longer see any part of himself. And in fact, were he to have light, it would terrify him to no end, to know that he could not even see himself then. As he stumbles onwards, this small bit of land that he's found himself on, Charles assumes that it is, more stone that will lead further, but he is horrified to find that it is indeed just an island, in the center of which burns a torch. The torch illuminates a table and a bowl. The bowl contains pure water. The same kind Charles somehow knows is surrounding him in this lake. Within the water, flashes of memory are visible. Flashes of other people's memories. Flashes of the hopes and dreams of many. And despite being surrounded by the sounds of so many people attempting to relive their lives and describe them and try to hold on to something that they no longer have, Charles realizes all at once that this bowl of water is not simply a place to wash your hands or a place to baptize children or anything like that. This is the font of knowledge. This is the tome that he has been looking for. But it's no book or series of clay tablets upon which this old ancient civilization impressed their understanding of the universe. It is a collection of the thoughts and feelings and knowledge and experience of every single human being that has ever existed, contained in one vessel. And Charles knows without even getting closer that it perhaps even contains the knowledge and experience of beings other than the humans who have lived on this planet. As he approaches, the memories come unbidden to him. Memories that are not his own. Memories of people thousands of years ago gathering in the place far above ground, where the fireplaces were roaring and the large pit loomed in the center of the room. There were hundreds of people dancing, cheering, chanting, and one by one they would venture down into the pit, past the labyrinth where they would add a single tile to the mosaics, seemingly at random, but forming part of a greater picture, the picture of humanity's existence. And they would head to the waterfall, and they would fall into it, where they would be consumed, pulverized by the waterfall, but that their memories and experience would be kept for all eternity, for someone to come and drink from. Charles leans down. He dips his hands into the water to cup some of it to drink. He almost screams from the flashes of intense imagery, the smell of burning flesh, the images and feelings of war and anger and rage, regret, longing. And he brings the water to his lips and he drinks. His eyes go wide as the weight of the knowledge of all humanity crashes into his meager brain, unable to process all of it at the same time. And all of the images fade away, save one. The last mosaic, or the last piece of the mosaic at the end of that labyrinth, in the very center of it, the place he did not run to, where it shows a vast and empty landscape, which is the same, he realizes, as the vast and empty landscape that was the first. Humanity came from nothing, and humanity will return to nothing. And Charles, now that he has consumed some of the water, can see in the darkness around him. They're not just the voices and the memories and the experiences of all of those people. They are here. They are all here. And they all cannot be seen.